Have you ever felt like everything is slipping through your fingers? Moments, people, even your own sense of self. Why does nothing last? Why does suffering linger? And what if who you think you are isn't the whole truth? In this video, we journey into the heart of Buddhist wisdom to explore the three signatas: impermanence, suffering, and non-self, not as abstract ideas, but as living truths you can touch in every breath. Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where every story is a compelling truth. 1. Touching impermanence, Anicca, the river of change. If you close your eyes and listen deeply, you may hear the sound of time passing, not like a ticking clock, but like a breath, soft, subtle, leaving no trace. The nature of all things is to change, and yet, how often we live as if the present moment could be captured and stored, as if it would remain the same forever. In Buddhist teaching, impermanence, Anicca, is not merely a concept, but a doorway to liberation. It is one of the three marks of existence, the first truth that a practitioner must truly see with the eyes of mindfulness. Impermanence is not hidden. It is all around us, waiting for us to touch it with our awareness. A flower opens in the morning, radiant with dew. By evening, its petals begin to fade. We do not mourn the falling of its petals. We understand that its beauty includes the moment it lets go. Why then do we mourn so deeply when a moment in our life begins to dissolve? Why do we fear the inevitable flow of time? We suffer not because things change, but because we want them not to. We grasp, we cling, we tell ourselves that we will be happy if only we can hold on to what we love or avoid what we fear. But the river continues to flow. To understand impermanence is to begin dissolving that clinging. It does not mean we love less. It means we love more deeply, because we know we cannot keep what we love. The moment is precious precisely because it will not last. Take a breath. Feel it enter your body. It nourishes you. Now release it. You cannot hold that breath forever. If you tried, you would suffer. Life is the same. We must allow each experience to arise and pass, like the in-breath and the out-breath. Holding on is not life. Letting go is. There is a kind of freedom that comes when we truly see impermanence. It is not a freedom of escape, but a freedom that comes from being fully present. The moment you are in is enough. You do not need to grasp for more. You do not need to fear its passing. You can live this moment deeply, knowing it is the only one you have. When we do not understand impermanence, we are easily wounded. A harsh word spoken years ago can still hurt us today. A relationship that ended long ago may still leave us aching. But when we see clearly, we understand that everything, pain included, rises and falls. Suffering is not solid. It is not eternal. It is like a cloud, drifting, changing, disappearing. With this insight, we can begin to heal. We no longer need to hold tightly to our pain, our anger, or our sorrow. We can look at them gently, breathe with them, and let them pass through us, like wind through an open window. Sometimes, the fear of impermanence becomes so strong that we try to numb ourselves to change. We distract, we overwork, we chase pleasure to cover our anxiety. But distraction cannot protect us from reality. It only delays our encounter with it. Sooner or later, we must look into the mirror and see that we too are changing. Your body, once young and strong, will one day tremble. Your hair may gray. Your skin may wrinkle. The people you love may grow distant or pass away. But rather than grieving these changes, what if we learn to bow to them? A tree does not resist winter. It lets go of its leaves. In spring, it grows again. It does not mourn what it has lost. It trusts the rhythm of life. We, too, can learn this trust. we can learn to meet each stage of our journey with openness instead of resistance. This does not mean that we do not feel grief. It means that we do not drown in it. We breathe through it. We hold it gently. And eventually, we set it down. To see impermanence is to see that everything is in process. Nothing is ever complete. Nothing is finished. The person you are today is not the same person you were yesterday. The thoughts in your mind this morning may not be there tomorrow. Your joys and sorrows, your fears and hopes, they are always moving. When we sit in stillness and observe the breath, we touch this truth directly. And when we truly accept this, we stop postponing our life. We stop saying, "I'll begin when everything is perfect," or "I'll love when I'm no longer afraid." We begin now. We love now. We forgive now, because we know that waiting is another form of resistance. In a moment of silence, you can ask yourself, what have I been clinging to? What moments have I tried to keep from passing? And what have I ignored, thinking I had forever to return? Impermanence teaches us to treasure what is here. It teaches us to look into the eyes of a loved one and truly see them, not as an image fixed in memory, but as a living, breathing miracle that is only here now. When we live with this awareness, gratitude arises naturally, a drop of water on a leaf, reflecting morning light, a breeze brushing against your cheek, the sound of a bird calling in the distance. These things may seem small, but they are the essence of life. To touch them with awareness is to touch the sacred. We do not need to run away to find peace. We only need to arrive fully where we are, because everything we are searching for is already here, in this moment, and this moment, too, will pass. Impermanence is the great teacher. It humbles our pride. It dissolves our certainty. It opens the door to compassion. When we see that others are also subject to change, we become more patient, more forgiving, more kind. When someone is angry, we can remember, this anger is not who they are. It is a passing storm. When we are caught in jealousy or fear, we can say to ourselves, this is a wave. I do not have to become the wave. I can breathe and let it pass. With the insight of impermanence, we become spacious. We stop trying to fix ourselves or others. We stop demanding permanence from a world that is made of clouds and wind. We begin to trust that each moment knows how to carry itself, that life, in its own wisdom, unfolds just as it must. We may ask, if nothing lasts, what is the point of love? But this is the wrong question. The truth is, because nothing lasts, love is the only thing that matters. It is not permanence that gives meaning. It is presence. To live with impermanence is to live in such a way that we are always awake. We become like the moon reflecting in still water, not clinging, not resisting, simply shining. In the end, the river does not fear the ocean. It flows with trust. So may we, in our own lives, learn to let go, not as a loss, but as a return, not as an end, but as a deep bow to the miracle of being alive. Let us breathe in and touch this truth. Let us breathe out and offer ourselves to the next moment, with open hands, to embracing suffering. Dukkha, the doorway to awakening. There is a kind of silence that falls after great pain, not the silence of peace, but the silence of absence, a space where laughter once lived, or where trust once bloomed. In this space, we meet a truth that no one can escape. To live is to encounter suffering, but in the Buddhist path, suffering is not an enemy, it is a teacher. The word dukkha, often translated as suffering, does not only mean pain or agony. It is the unease that lingers beneath pleasure. It is the dissatisfaction that follows even success. It is the instability of things that seem stable, and the longing for things that cannot stay. It is the hollowness we sometimes feel in the midst of comfort. and the grief that surfaces without warning, like smoke rising from a fire we thought had burned out. Most of us are taught from a young age to avoid suffering. We cover it, distract from it, run from it. But what we avoid only grows stronger in the dark. What we refuse to touch becomes the seed of fear, and fear becomes a cage. To awaken, we must turn toward the suffering, not away from it, not with judgment, but with deep, compassionate attention. A wound left untended will fester, but a wound cradled in mindfulness can begin to heal. When you sit in stillness and breathe gently, you may begin to notice a tightness in your chest or heaviness behind your eyes. That is suffering revealing itself. You do not need to analyze it. You do not need to push it away. Just breathe with it. Acknowledge it. Say silently, "I see you. I am here for you," like a mother returning to her crying child. In one of his teachings, the Buddha said, "I teach only suffering and the end of suffering." This was not a bleak statement. It was a message of hope, because when we understand the roots of our suffering, we also discover the path that leads out of it. We often think suffering is something that happens to us from the outside: a broken relationship, a failing body, a job lost, a word spoken in anger. But the deepest suffering arises not from the events themselves, but from our relationship to them. How we resist, how we cling, how we misunderstand. A person who loses something dear will naturally feel pain, but if they grasp tightly to what is already gone, or blame themselves endlessly, or demand that life be otherwise, that pain becomes magnified. It becomes a suffering layered with fear, shame, and illusion. Through the practice of mindfulness, we learn to see clearly. We begin to distinguish pain from suffering. We recognize the stories we build around our wounds, and with loving awareness, we begin to lay them down. A woman once shared her story of heartbreak. After years of marriage, her partner left. At first, she drowned in sorrow, but over time, as she practiced being with her pain, sitting with it, walking with it, breathing with it, she began to see that the suffering was not only about the person who left. It was about her fear of being alone, her belief that she was unworthy of love, her longing to be seen. And as these layers softened, she discovered something surprising. Beneath the grief was a vast and tender silence, a ground of peace that had been there all along. Suffering, when embraced with mindfulness, leads us not into despair, but into depth. The lotus does not bloom without the mud. This is not a metaphor. It is a law of nature. The darker the mud, the brighter the blossom. In our own lives, the mud of sorrow, loss, and uncertainty can become the very soil from which understanding and compassion grow. This is not a romanticization of suffering. Pain is real. Grief is sharp. Loneliness cuts deep. But if we meet these experiences with presence, something in us begins to transform. We stop fighting what is. We become intimate with the truth. And in that intimacy, love awakens. The Four Noble Truths, the Buddha's first teaching, begin with this acknowledgement: there is suffering. He did not ask us to escape life. He asked us to look into life with clarity and courage, to understand its patterns, to see how desire and aversion bind us, and to walk a path that leads to liberation, not through denial, but through insight. There is a kind of awakening that comes not in moments of peace, but in moments of despair, when all masks fall, and we sit with nothing but ourselves. In that moment, if we can remain present, a quiet strength is born, a strength that does not come from pushing away the storm, but from learning to sit in its center and breathe. Suffering connects us. It breaks open the illusion of separation. When we suffer, we understand the suffering of the others more deeply. A parent who has lost a child will weep for all grieving parents. A refugee who has known hunger will not walk past a stranger in need. From suffering, compassion arises, not as pity, but as shared humanity. We begin to see that everyone we meet carries hidden burdens. The smile of a stranger may hide a heartbreak. The anger of a friend may be a cry for help. When we see with the eyes of suffering, we listen more deeply. We speak more kindly. We judge less quickly. But to develop this insight, we must first offer it to ourselves. Too often, we meet our own suffering with harshness. We blame ourselves for not being stronger, wiser, more whole. But suffering is not a punishment. It is a part of life. To suffer is not to fail. It is to be human. When we suffer, we can place a hand on our heart and breathe with tenderness. We can say, "Dear one, I know you are hurting. I am here for you." In that simple act, healing begins. Suffering also teaches us about impermanence. No feeling lasts forever. A moment of anguish may seem endless, but it will pass. When we learn to stay present with suffering without trying to escape, we begin to see its changing nature, and in that seeing, we find freedom. To walk the path of the Dharma is not to seek a life without pain, but to live a life in which pain is no longer our master. We become free, not because life stops hurting, but because we no longer fear hurt. We know we can hold it. We know we can breathe through it. And as we do, we come to a deeper truth. That awakening is not found in avoiding the world, but in embracing it fully, with all its beauty and all its sorrow. When the Buddha touched the earth beneath him before his enlightenment, he was not seeking escape. He was grounding himself in the reality of this world, its joy, its grief, its endless arising and passing. That gesture reminds us, the earth can hold our suffering, so can we. In the practice of sitting meditation, we invite suffering to be our guest. We do not send it away. We offer it tea. We listen to its stories, and in that listening, we discover that it no longer needs to scream. It simply wants to be seen. When suffering is seen clearly, it transforms. It may not disappear, but it no longer controls us. It becomes part of the great river of our life, flowing, changing, carrying us forward. To embrace suffering is not to give up. It is to begin. 3. Seeing through illusion. Anatta, the non-self insight. Sit quietly. Allow your breath to find its natural rhythm. Inhale, aware that this body is breathing. Exhale, aware that the breath has already changed. Now gently ask yourself, who is breathing? It seems like a simple question, but to look into it with depth is to begin unraveling the illusion of self, a task that does not lead to disappearance, but to freedom. In Buddhist teaching, the insight of non-self is like a gentle bell that awakens us from the long sleep of separation. We have been taught to say I, to believe in a solid me who feels, thinks, suffers, and achieves. But when we look deeply, with mindfulness and tenderness, we find that there is no fixed entity beneath the layers of body and mind. There is only a vast flow of causes and conditions, dancing moment by moment. You are not a separate drop of water falling through space. You are the river. To see this clearly is not an intellectual exercise. It is a lived experience, cultivated through mindfulness, breathing, and deep listening. When you walk slowly, fully aware of each step, you may begin to feel that the ground beneath your feet is not separate from your body. When you drink tea with full presence, the tea is not just a drink. It is a cloud, a field, the hands that pick the leaves, and your own awareness flowing into all things. The idea of a separate, unchanging self is like a mirage. We chase it, hoping it will give us identity, importance, permanence. But no matter how far we run, we never find the place where the self resides. Is it in the body? But the body is always changing. Cells die and renew. Shapes evolve. Is it in the mind? But thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. Is it in feelings? But even joy turns to sorrow, and sorrow back to calm. We suffer because we cling to what is fluid, as if it were solid. We say, my pain, my anger, my truth. And we build walls around those words. But when we sit in meditation and observe with compassion, we realize that what we call me is simply a collection of elements, the five skandhas: form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. These arise together, depend on one another, and are in constant transformation. There is nothing to grasp, and in this not grasping, there is peace. Non-self does not mean that we disappear or that life becomes meaningless. On the contrary, it means that we are not confined. When we let go of the illusion of a separate self, we return to the vastness of life. We are no longer isolated individuals struggling to protect our fragile identity. We become part of the great web of interbeing, in which everything touches everything else. When you touch the truth of non-self, even for a brief moment, your heart softens. You stop blaming others, because you see they too are caught in the same illusion. You stop blaming yourself, because you see that the suffering you carry is not yours. It is made of many conditions, many voices, many streams. Perhaps someone once said words that wounded you, and you have carried that wound as my pain for many years. But with mindfulness, you can look into that pain and see its roots. You may see that the one who spoke harshly was also suffering. You may see that the voice of judgment has lived in your ancestors, passed silently through generations, and suddenly, the pain is not so personal. It is not who you are. It is something you can understand, embrace, and eventually release. This is the power of non-self. It does not erase your story. It transforms it. A tree does not claim its leaves. It does not say, "This is my green, my shadow, my fall." The tree simply allows the cycle of seasons to move through it. So too, we can allow joy, sorrow, love, fear, and silence to pass through us, without needing to possess them. To be fully alive does not require a solid self. It requires openness. In daily life, we often act out of the need to protect our self-image. We argue to be right, not because the truth is at stake, but because our sense of identity feels threatened. We compare, compete, and consume, hoping to confirm our worth. But none of these efforts satisfy, because they are based on something that does not truly exist. If you see that there is no fixed I to defend, you become free to listen. You are no longer trapped in proving, controlling, or reacting. You respond instead with calm understanding. To practice non-self is not to become passive or indifferent. It is to live with greater love when there is no boundary between me and you. Compassion arises naturally. Your happiness is not separate from mine. Your suffering touches me as my own. I do not love you because you are mine. I love you because in you, I see myself. This isn't poetry. It is mindfulness. The insight of non-self is also essential for healing. Often we say, I am broken. I am lost. I am not enough. But these are just thoughts. They do not represent an eternal truth. The one who is suffering today may be the one who brings peace tomorrow. The child who was neglected may become the adult who offers the most tenderness. No identity is fixed. No story is final. You can be new in every moment. Sit with your breath. Feel it move in and out. Ask again, who is breathing? You may notice that there is no clear answer. There is only breath. There is only awareness. And in this simple recognition, a vast stillness opens. This stillness is not the absence of self. It is the presence of life. And when death approaches, as it must for each of us, the insight of non-self becomes a source of deep peace. If there is no fixed self to protect, then there is nothing to lose. What we call death is just another transformation. Like the candle flame that becomes warmth, like the wave that returns to the ocean, we do not vanish. We continue through the love we offered, the thoughts we shared, the peace we cultivated in our steps. You are not a thing. You are a process. You are not a name. You are a song, sung by countless voices. And when you know this in your bones, fear begins to loosen its grip. Let go of the need to be someone. Be instead the breath, the awareness, the compassionate presence in this moment. Let go of the story. Be the silence that listens. Let go of becoming. Be the path itself. To see through the illusion of self is not to vanish, but to appear fully, just as you are, empty of separateness, full of life. If this reflection has touched something quiet and true within you, I invite you to walk this path with me. Subscribe to the channel so we may continue to breathe, to listen, and to awaken together. If you feel called, please like this video, share it with someone who may need a moment of stillness, and leave a comment below. Your voice, your presence, your journey, it matters. Let us keep planting seeds of peace, one breath, one story at a time.